There is a specific kind of silence that descends on a football stadium when a match ends before it should have. Not the silence of a final whistle. The silence that falls on 10 men. The silence of a team looking at each other in the 44 minutes that follow a red card, knowing that the mathematics of the match have just changed in a way that no amount of effort or organization can fully correct. Switzerland experienced that silence in Kansas City on Saturday, and when the final whistle blew, Argentina 3, Switzerland 1 after extra time, the voices that broke that silence were not quiet or measured or resigned. They were specific, they were pointed, and they have been heard across the football world in the 24 hours since. Remo Freuler said it was just a disaster. Granit Xhaka said to not kill the game like that. Murat Yakin said he didn't know this rule existed before Saturday, and Manuel Akanji, the Manchester City defender, one of the most experienced Swiss players at this tournament, said something that cuts through every technical discussion about the VAR protocol and the simulation rule, and the mistaken identity provision. He said the referee was against us. He said every little thing was called against us. Not one call, not the red card in isolation. Every little thing. That is the statement of a player who spent 120 minutes of a World Cup quarterfinal feeling that the officiating environment was not neutral. Whether that feeling reflects reality, whether João Pinheiro and his all-Portuguese crew were indeed applying the laws of the game with systematic bias against Switzerland, is a question that the footage and the protocol can speak to with some precision. But the feeling itself, felt and expressed by multiple Swiss players independently after the match, is a real and significant part of this story. And it sits alongside a tournament-wide pattern of officiating controversy that has made feelings of this kind both more understandable and more difficult to dismiss. So, what's really happening here? Let's go through everything. The specific incidents, the specific words, the specific responses, and build the full picture. The match in Kansas City was, for its first 71 minutes, the best Switzerland had played at this tournament. McAllister's header had given Argentina the lead in the 12th minute, a goal of genuine quality from a set piece that Scaloni's side had clearly worked on. But Switzerland's response was admirable and increasingly confident. Dan Ndoye drew them level in the 67th minute, with a composed finish that exposed a space behind Argentina's high defensive line. The momentum had shifted. Switzerland were playing with the belief of a team that had beaten Algeria in the round of 32 and survived Colombia on penalties. They were genuinely in this match. Then Breel Embolo went down in Argentina's penalty area in the 72nd minute. What happened in the following 90 seconds has been covered extensively. Pinheiro showed a yellow card to Leandro Paredes for the challenge. VAR intervened. The footage showed Paredes had not touched Embolo. The mistaken identity protocol was applied. Pinheiro canceled the yellow for Paredes and showed one to Embolo instead. Because Embolo had already been booked earlier in the match, the second yellow became a red. The correct decision, under the laws of the game as FIFA has written them. Technically. Fully. Correctly. But there is a dimension of the Embolo sending off that received less attention in the immediate coverage than it deserved. The protocol that produced the red card required a specific triggering condition. VAR can only initiate a mistaken identity review when a yellow card has already been shown by the on-field referee. If Pinheiro had made no decision, if he had seen the incident and waved it away, VAR would not have been able to review Embolo's simulation on its own merits. It was specifically the decision to book Paredes that opened the door to the VAR intervention that cost Embolo his place in the match. The correct initial booking created the conditions for the review. The review produced a red card. A chain of technically correct decisions, each one dependent on the one before, produced a consequence that Switzerland's coach said he didn't know was possible because he didn't know the rule existed. That is not a comfortable place for the governing body's communication about this tournament's officiating framework to be sitting. When the head coach of a nation's World Cup quarterfinal team says he was unaware of the rule that changed the balance of his most important match, something in the communication of that rule, to managers, to players, to the federations responsible for preparation, has failed. Now bring in the Messi dimension, because the captain of the team that benefited from the Embolo decision had his own moment with Pinheiro that dominated the visual record of the first half, and that has generated a wave of commentary that goes in a completely different direction from the Swiss frustration. It was the 42nd minute. Argentina were leading 1-0. Switzerland were preparing to take a free kick. Pinheiro was marshalling the defensive wall, a routine part of a referee's management of set pieces, instructing players to stand at the required distance and in the required position. Messi, positioned in the wall, took issue with how the referee spoke to him during this process, not with what was said, with how it was said. Cameras across multiple broadcast feeds captured what followed, and liberators and translators working from the footage produced a consistent account of what Messi said to Pinheiro. "Speak to me properly. Don't disrespect me. Speak to me properly. I spoke to you properly." 14 words, delivered with the particular intensity of someone who has decided that this moment requires a response regardless of the consequences. Messi is 39 years old. He has played in 6 World Cups. He has won 1. He has been in more high-pressure officiating environments than almost any footballer in history. He does not typically lose his composure with referees. The fact that he did so in the 42nd minute of a World Cup quarterfinal in an exchange that was captured by every camera in the stadium and that spread across social media before the first half had finished tells you something about the temperature of this match before the Embolo situation had even arrived. The specific spark for Messi's exchange, Pinheiro's manner while managing the defensive wall, is not in itself unusual. Referees instruct players in defensive walls all the time, sometimes with more firmness than the players feel is appropriate. What made this moment extraordinary is the context, a match surrounded by pre-existing scrutiny about officiation, a player whose tournament has been at the center of that scrutiny across 4 consecutive knockout matches, a referee instructing the sport's most famous player to adjust his position, and that player responding by telling him publicly, on camera, to speak with more respect. The image that dominated social media coverage after the match was not Julian Alvarez's goal, though that goal deserves every description of brilliance being applied to it. It was Messi pointing his finger at Pinheiro, making his position clear. Whether you view that image as a player standing up to authority, as many Argentine supporters did, or as a player who believes his status entitles him to a specific standard of treatment from officials, as many Swiss supporters did, is a question of perspective that the image itself does not answer. What it does is add another layer to the most talked about officiating story in world football. Manuel Akanji's post-match assessment deserves its own examination. The Manchester City center-back is not prone to public accusations. He is a professional who typically conducts himself with the composure of someone who has spent years in elite club environments, where discretion is valued. His choice to say, clearly and on the record, that the referee was against his team, that every little thing was called against Switzerland, reflects something genuine about his experience of the match. He specifically referenced the moment where Denis Zakaria won a header in the air, only for Pinheiro to blow his whistle for a foul because of what Akanji characterized as exaggerated movement from Argentina defender Nicolás Tagliafico. Zakaria had won the aerial ball cleanly. Tagliafico's reaction, which prompted the whistle, was described by multiple observers as theatrical. That specific incident, Zakaria's aerial challenge, Tagliafico's response, Pinheiro's decision, is the moment that sits alongside the Embolo red card in Switzerland's account of what the officiating felt like across 120 minutes. It is not a single controversial call. It is 2 moments in opposite areas of the pitch in different phases of the match, both going against Switzerland, and both generating immediate and public criticism from Swiss players. The accumulation is what Akanji was responding to, not one error, a pattern within a single match. Here's where the broader tournament context becomes impossible to separate from the specific Kansas City story. Argentina have now been involved in 7 major VAR and officiating controversies across their 4 knockout matches: the Mendy challenge, the Algeria goal, the Egyptian unreviewed foul, the Balogun suspension reversal, the Egypt disallowed goal, the unreviewed Salah contact, and now the Embolo red card alongside the Tagliafico theatrical fall. In each match, in each controversy, the outcome favored Argentina. Each individual decision has a technical justification available within the protocol. The pattern across all of them has not. Gary Neville used the word dictatorship about VAR at this tournament. Remo Freuler said disaster. Granit Xhaka said don't kill the game like that. Carlos Queiroz said VAR went for a coffee, and then he clarified he was joking because otherwise they would fine him. Algeria filed a formal complaint in Zurich. Egypt's federation said it cannot remain silent. Hossam Hassan said it was about money and Messi. Belgium's federation documented a process in which they were given no information, treated as having filed an appeal for asking a question, and denied any explanation for one of the most unprecedented disciplinary decisions in World Cup history. And Murat Yakin said he didn't know the rule that eliminated his team existed before Saturday. Pierluigi Collina has defended his officials across every controversy. Nobody can question their integrity. The system is working. The appointments are based on performance and neutrality. These statements may all be accurate. They do not address the question that the football world is asking, not whether the officials are corrupt, whether the protocols as they are being applied are producing a tournament that the people participating in and watching it can trust and understand. Switzerland supporters who had rallied behind a team that reached the World Cup quarterfinal for the first time since 1954, that beat Algeria and survived Colombia on penalties, that drew level against Argentina and had them genuinely worried, now carry the specific, documented, formally expressed belief that their tournament ended earlier than it should have because of decisions that the protocol allows and that football cannot fully absorb. Julian Alvarez's goal in extra time was magnificent, a 22-yard curled finish into the top corner that stopped you mid-sentence. Argentina are in the semifinals against England. The Messi-Maradona 1986 comparisons are already being written. The football is extraordinary. And Switzerland are home. Freuler is packing his bags in Kansas City, saying the rules shouldn't change a game like that. Akanji is telling anyone who will listen that every little thing was called against them. Yakin is reviewing a match he said Switzerland deserved to be in further. And Xhaka, the captain, said the 4 words that contain everything his team felt. 11 against 11, we had them. What do you think? When multiple players from the same team, independently and on the record, say the officiating environment felt hostile, when the coach says he didn't know the rule that eliminated them existed, does that change how you assess what happened in Kansas City? Or does the technical correctness of each individual decision override the accumulated experience of everyone who lived through it? If you found this worth your time, a like helps more than you think. Subscribe if you enjoy thoughtful football coverage, and let me know your view in the comments. I read everyone.